Today on Grand Cuisine, we are cooking pot au feu, a classic beef dish boiled hearthside in our fireplace. It's in almost every culture, and I hope you'll join us. So today on Grand Cuisine, we are making pot au feu, or a boiled beef dinner. This is a classic dish that every single culture has. Nothing more than an inexpensive piece of beef and vegetables that are boiled together in an aromatic broth. Our recipe comes from Alexis Soyer, whose book Classic French Cuisine gives us a very simplistic pot au feu. But it really is a simplistic dish. It's nothing more than the beef that is brought to a boil in some water, or perhaps some other type of bouillon, and then various vegetables are added to it. Depending on the recipe will depend on what type of vegetables. In France, you're going to see vegetables like celery, carrots. We also have some turnips. We have some leeks. And we also have some parsnips. Now, we're also borrowing a little bit of a more modern interpretation, and we've actually pulled from a very, very wonderful mentor and friend of mine, Chef Henry Huller, the executive chef of the White House, from the Johnson administration through the Reagan administration. And he offers in his cookbook, the White House cookbook, a very similar boiled beef dinner. He does attribute it to the Nixon administration. In fact, my impression was that he was a bit of a fan of Mr. Nixon. But he gives us a wonderful, wonderful New England style boiled dinner. And of course, there they incorporate cabbage and they also incorporate potatoes. You don't really find that in France, but I thought we'd kind of combine the two. So what I'm doing with our vegetables is I'm cutting them into pieces and I'm washing them in some fresh water, and then I'm allowing them to drain, and they'll be ready to go into our boiled beef that, as I can hear, is boiling away in our hearth. So we have the leeks, and we're going to begin cleaning those. I'm going to cut those right at the end here and remove the green. And then I'm going to cut straight down the middle of the leek. And I'm going to peel back one additional layer. And then I'm going to wash that in my water to remove all of the sand, because the leeks are known to be very sandy. They grow in sandy soil. And then we're going to just shake those off. I'm going to cut off the root end. And then I'm going to cut those into pieces. I will continue and prepare our turnips, our carrots, and our parsnips. We're at the hearth and our beef has come to a boil in the water. And I also want to do an onion brulee, which is going to give us some color. So I'm going to take an onion half and I'm going to add it just directly to a pan that's over the heat. And I'm going to literally allow it to burn. And then I'm going to add it to my pot, and that's going to give us some color. The very old traditional French way of adding some depth of color. So we also have our pan and our beef that is simmering nicely. And so I'm going to take a little bit of salt and I'm going to add that right in. We're going to add in some more flavorings in just a minute, but we're going to add in our salt. And now we're going to let it cook, simmer slowly in the hearth over the fire, as of course would have been done for hundreds of years, and just allow this to cook and gently release all of those wonderful flavors. And then we're going to start adding our vegetables. So our recipe from Chef Alexis Sawyer, who's one of our favorites here at Grand Cuisine, who's the British chef who did so many wonderful things, working with the Irish with the potato famine, creating the very first soup kitchens, and also working with the British Army when they were literally starving to create better ways to feed them. In his recipe for pot au feu, well, there's not a lot of flavor. He offers us our vegetables, he offers us onion, salt, and a couple of cloves, and that's it. So we want to go a little bit more, do a little more flavor. We're going to add some garlic. We're not afraid of garlic like they were in the 1840s or 1860s. So we're going to go ahead and make a sachet d'épices, or what is in French a small purse of seasonings. So I have some cheesecloth that I'm going to cut a piece from. And then I'm going to spread that out. And in this cheesecloth, I'm going to put some fresh thyme. I'm going to put some fresh parsley. I'm going to put a couple of bay leaves. I'm going to put about 5 or 6 cloves. And then I'm going to take 2 cloves of garlic. And we'll take the skins off of those. And I'm going to add that into my sachet. And of course, this will go into our pot and give us a whole bunch of flavor, and then we can retrieve it. So I also have some peppercorns. I'm going to add about 10 or 12 of those. And now I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to tie this up. I'll bring the 4 corners together and then make a bundle. And I will tie this around. And then this will be ready to go into our pot that is cooking away on our hearth. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in our sachet. I'm going to tie it right to the edge of my pot handle here. I want to make sure it doesn't catch on fire. So let's make sure all of our strings are into our pot. We'll stick it in there. And there we go. And then I'm going to take my onion, which should have browned nicely, and I'm going to add that right to our pot as well. So now we will let that cook and develop some flavor. So kind of fun coming back to the hearth, cooking a little bit over an open fire on a cold, wintry day. You can already smell the wonderful aroma of that beef and the seasonings. It's going to be pretty good. So as your beef is cooking, you may want to add a little bit of water just so that you don't evaporate too much liquid from it. Let's also check our cabbage that is cooking here, and it is steaming nicely. So we are just cooking away. We're just about ready to add our vegetables to our boiled beef pot au feu. So the best way to tell if meat like this is done is by taking a fork and pushing it into it. And if the meat releases easily from the fork, you can tell that the meat is almost done. And we're almost at that point, which is why we're just about ready to add our vegetables. So the meat should literally fall from the fork when it is completely tender. So let's go ahead, see if we can cram these vegetables into our pot here. So after I add the vegetables, I probably have another hour of cooking left. So I'm going to add those in. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and we're going to cover this all up with our lid and let that keep cooking. So let's take a quick look at the heat that is in our hearth and our fireplace. So I've got a nice log that's underneath the beef itself in our pot. And I've got a really good boil going on our beef, cooking very, very well. And then I've pulled some embers that's underneath the cabbage, and that's just enough heat to allow that to simmer and stew very nicely. And that will also be ready for our potatoes. So I've got some really good heat distribution, a little more fire that is underneath the pot of beef itself, and more of ember cooking that is cooking our cabbage. And we'll also put our potatoes in there and allow it to cook that way. So hey, we know that food is ready because Humphrey's right here. And he's my sous chef, and he always knows when food is ready to go. So everything has cooked well. I am putting my fork into the beef, and it is easily releasing. I'm also doing the same thing to our potatoes, and our potatoes are done. So we have had a fantastic cook time here on our hearth stove. Let's go ahead, let's plate this up, and let's see what we've got. So I'm going to remove my meat from my pan, and I'm going to slice it. I want to slice across the grain so I get it nice and tender. So we're going to slice straight down, and so our meat falls into beautiful, beautiful chunks, nice slices that are tender, very flavorful. It's really amazing the wonderful flavor that this actually has. Even my wife, who gave me an odd look, said, "Wow, that smells so good." So we're going to place this on here. We'll add just a little bit more. So once again, I find the grain, and then I slice across the grain. And you can see how very, very tender our meat is. So, and this really is a very, very easy way to make what would be a traditional Sunday night dinner that you would find in many parts of America. Even though we used a French recipe, this is very, very much American. So we're going to take and we're going to just douse it with that wonderful broth that we have. And there we go. And then this is ready to serve. Let's go ahead. I'm going to steal a bite. There we go. So let's try a little piece. Oh, it literally melts in your mouth. We've used a top round of beef and allowed it to cook. It is so moist, so tender. It's got the best flavor. You taste a little bit of the clove. And then, of course, we have the thyme and the garlic and a couple of those modern herbs that kind of lend itself and give a wonderful flavor. So there we go. This is our pot au feu, our beef that has been cooked hearthside in boiling wonderful broth with aromatic wonderful vegetables for a very simplistic dinner. Classic French, classic so many cultures, and it's here on Grand Cuisine. So we so appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to subscribe to us, hit that like button, and come back. Join us for many, many more things. Look up our contest that we have running. We'd love for you to win one of our prizes, and we look forward to seeing you again. Happy cooking.